taking the chance that it rains a little more, but at the moment the rain has abated.
Yeah, looking out the commentary box window, I can see red tyres for Tom Sykes, so he's still out there on the X tyre. Locatelli's still out there on the Z.
Absolutely astonishing build-up to this weekend, astonishing season it's been, astonishing build-up to this race one as well. His warm-up lap. Caution will be the order of the day.
They're like when they come around turn 10.
Jonathan Rea with a big opportunity here. We know that time difference, it's not going to be easy for anyone to ride within themselves. And we know that that's not really Toprak's bag anyway. Reminder of the championship, Sioglu with Jonathan Rea winning would leave the gap at 25 points. Razgatlioglu cannot be caught for race victories in feature-length races, which are his third position. That's going the way of Scott Redding at very least. There is still a chance that he could get as high as second overall.
Yeah, look how dark it is. The super soft compound tyre right now. Alvaro Bautista, Tom Sykes, Michael van der Mark and Tino Rabat. So all the front row starters, all the leading contenders. Key Jonathan Rea territory over the course of his 6 championship seasons. This was always where he was at his best. He knows the Kawasaki inside out.
Race 1 of the 2021 Pirelli Indonesian round. For the first time since its inaugural season, the Model FIM Superbike due to weather conditions and the cancellation of the Superpole race. Jonathan Rea only has 2 scoring opportunities to make up a mammoth 30-point decider. Lights out on race 1. Not a good start at all from Scott Redding. Rea's away superbly. Garrett Gerloff comes through to third. It's Rea who leads early on. Gerloff loses out in the initial skirmish. Tom Sykes forcing his way through very nicely indeed. Remember, from 6th position down in 14th position he started this race. He's already up inside the top just in the early stages. Toprak finding his feet at the front of the field. It's Jonathan Rea who's burst from the line. Ideal situation for the number. And Tom Sykes right on the pace and right on the case of this top 3.
Yeah, Sykes with that X tyre really strong in the opening lap, coming through from 6th on the grid. We saw Gerloff 1 up into 2nd spot.
Very early days to be talking about the championship given these conditions as Tom Sykes scythes through on Scott Redding. Redding on this circuit in towards the slowest corner on this 4.3 kilometre track and in towards turn 16. Jonathan Rea beginning to have to defend place in order to seal this title, but he's not one for settling for second. He's going to be a racer to the last. Toprak at the start of lap 2 thinks about a move on Jonathan.
They're trying to make a run on the run into towards turn 1. He looks comfortable at this stage. It's in the second half of the lap, though. That's where it really is in the damper. Iconic at the start of the lap.
Very spectacularly indeed. And his inexperience telling there. He'd worked his way up quite nicely in order to make the difference in these conditions. And that's exactly what Toprak Razgatlioglu is trying to do here. Hassling and harrying Jonathan Rea into the braking
fingertips. And what's interesting is you can see for Toprak there, he looks like he's got that little bit of extra pace right now, a little bit more confidence than Jonathan Rea. Just a little bit more of a chance to be able to have that stability. So everyone's still out there trying to do what they can in these damper sections.
Who's already been the star of the show in damp conditions earlier on this campaign in Barcelona, cutting his way through the field once again. Michael Remand at the end of this 507-metre start-finish straight. Finally he gets it done. Jonathan Rea turns into turn 1, but he can't get there. Toprak's already...
Championship takes care of itself. He's willing to take the risks here in these conditions. Obviously on the run down in towards turn 1, that's where there is a bit of grip. You can see dicey out there, but we saw from Toprak he was also willing to push a little bit into turn 10, get close to Jonathan Rea in the previous lap. So it's just going to be a case of now on board that he's still having a little bit of an endo on the run into turn 10, so he's still braking really hard. The pace isn't hot in this league group, though. You can see at turn 12.
Bassani at the moment is the fastest man out there. Axel Bassani, who now cuts through on Scott Redding, said at 1 minute 39.4. Bassani could really put himself in the mix here with Razgatlioglu and Rea. It was Scott Redding who had 1 second deficit to the Twix is still in there. 1.5 seconds covering your lead quintet. Rea with an opportunity perhaps into turn number 1. We know how good Razgatlioglu is on the break. 4th, Sykes in 5th.
Yeah, Sykes' teammate Michael van der Mark, the fastest man on the track last time around. He was a full second faster than Toprak Razgatlioglu.
Superpole race earlier on in the season at the Portuguese round. A new fastest lap of the race, a 1:38.295. Tied on board now with Jonathan Rea. Nothing to choose between himself and Razgatlioglu as they come again in towards turn number 10. Bassani a little bit wide. He's going to at the back of this group. Runner-up in race 1 of the Catalonia round, the 9th round of this 2021 campaign, who mastered difficult track conditions and rubbed shot to hope for over the course of that weekend. Lap 5 of 20 gets underway. Razgatlioglu, 1/4 of a second of daylight behind him now to Bassani a second behind that lead quartet. A bit of a gap opening up to the 2 BMWs, P5 and P6. Michael van der Mark, Locatelli bout it.
Bridge some of that gap he needs to get through on Alvaro Bautista and Andrea Locatelli. You can see he's right there with Bautista. Only a matter of time before Davis on the number 7.
Superbly from 7th on the grid. 1 single podium finish to his name. Remember back to those damp conditions in the Catalonia round earlier on.
It's on Toprak at this stage so that he can go with Axel Bassani at the front of the field.
And Jonathan Rea does copy Axel Bassani's aggression as he fights found himself this far back in this race so far. We're only a 1/4 of the way Jonathan Ray now wants to hit the front. Oh, he moved Bassani out of the way. He working wonders for the current race leader, the new race leader, Jonathan Ray. New fastest lap of the race last time around from Ray. A 1:30 to confirm himself as world champion. He puts himself back into a title-winning position.
Yeah, we've said all the way through this weekend, it looks like in the dry conditions, Toprak and Coda Nozani down at 16, so none of those riders able to offer him any sort of help at this stage. It's all down to Toprak. He knew that he needed to follow through.
Scott Redding as Razgatlioglu makes his move on Jonathan Ray. Bit of a wobble from the pair of them as they make their way in towards turn 10. Ray thinks he might have them, but left the line open for Ray to pounce, and now Razgatlioglu has got Bassani and Redding tucked up all on the back of him. Half a second between the four.
The last time around was Ray that set the fastest lap. That's where we started to see this leading group stretch out. For Van der Mark down in 6th, the winner in the damp conditions in Porto.
Michael van der Mark in 6th position, matching the pace of Bassani and Redding last time around. Significant, and a new fastest lap of the race at 1:36.7.
The sun's come out, and in the last couple of minutes, 2 seconds slower than some of the dry weather pace we've seen this weekend. Ran about 3 seconds slower than the outright dry weather pace.
Now it's a question of whether it's much better for Toprak than it does for Ray. I'm not sure that there'll be enough strategy there for Jonathan Ray to try and bottle up Razgatlioglu or to hold up.
Has shown all the way through this season how aggressive he's willing to be on the racetrack, and if you bring that pace down to try and bring other riders into the battle.
Now of Tom Sykes, just a 10th or so of a second in it for that 5th position, but quite rightly our focus on the leaders. The Ray could not take the fight to the final race of this 2021 series. Big moment there for Bassani, defending 3rd position against Scott.
There by his crew, new fastest lap of the race. That time around for Jonathan Ray Toprak, just a 10th of a second slower, and that's why the leading four are stretching away 15. But as it is right now, it's just who's willing to push that little bit harder, who's willing to see where that grip is. Ray is the guinea pig, and we saw
of this season, turning point of the campaign in Most. We've seen drama in Portimao, the circuit where he was expected to dominate, but he stretched the tiniest of margins, a couple of tenths of a second the gap.
Yeah, and Ray just trying to edge himself away in that middle sector of the lap, as you said earlier on, Alec, but he wants to make sure he's able to stay with Ray. He wants to make sure that it's as safe a race as possible for
Turn your low-resolution blurred photo.
Bassani at the moment, because Redding has been dropped from the lead trio. He's half a second now behind Axel Bassani across the last timing point of 20. We come off the final turn to start lap 9. It's Jonathan Ray out in front. Another new fastest lap of the race as the track conditions gradually improve all season. Nothing to choose between them last lap either.
Yeah, and this might be the title deciding round, but certainly what we've seen all the way through this year is that these two, same here in Indonesia as well. Toprak, he looks like he's starting to push on a little bit. That's why Bassani's dropping that 10th of a second here, 10th of a second there.
Axel Bassani and Scott Redding to be world champion, but he's taking risks anyway. They're going to touch. Surely they're going to touch. Just about. Jonathan Ray squeezes out.
Expecting your rival on the racetrack, and for Toprak there, he went in a little bit too deep. You saw that he had that endo on the run in towards turn 10. He was
in through the final sector. Is there an opportunity for him to immediately respond? Surely that's going to be the key here for Jonathan Ray. Can't allow Razgatlioglu towards the bottleneck at turn 17. Might have to be a move in towards turn 1 at the start of lap 10 here. Razgatlioglu sees daylight. Aggressive here on Razgatlioglu. He's not close enough, and Toprak holds firm out in front.
Yeah, you're going to do well to outbreak Toprak on the run in towards turn 1 for him to make the moves. Ray not quite close enough on the run into turn 1, but you could see a little bit of a change for him there. He wanted to make sure he was in a position to try and attack
Razgatlioglu when we get in towards turn 10 here of lap number 10. He's very close to him coming off turn 9. Will Toprak be deep enough a while? These two are going to have to watch out for Scott Redding, who's closing in on them. New fastest lap of the race last time around, and a significant margin Redding made up as well. Only behind him, Redding up in 3rd position, could be the man to throw a little extra bit of spice into this mix. Further back, Tom Sykes and Mandalika a little bit wide. Ray storms through, and perfect block pass there through 15 and 16.
What's interesting as well, though, is over the course of this season 1, though.
Turn 1 of lap 11, Razgatlioglu now will respond. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining World SBK, this is...
Hasn't put a foot wrong out in the racetrack. He's racing this title-deciding weekend the same way he's done all the way through this season, trying to win it from the front.
Ray a bit hot in line and across the red and white curves as he makes his way back onto the tail of Razgatlioglu. Watch for Redding as well, closing in and spoiling.
10 is a little bit tighter than Toprak's. He's trying to just make sure he's got that drive, and he's on the gas a little bit earlier to set up the end of this lap.
Well, at the moment it looks would also be good enough. The best way Jonathan Ray can stop Toprak Razgatlioglu is by beating him, or perhaps more to the point, beating him up.
Corner very strong. Toprak's learned a bit of a lesson though in the previous couple of laps.
And here goes Redding. Scott Redding down the inside of Jonathan Ray through 15 and 60 Oglu, and suddenly Toprak is able to make a bit of a gap, a 1/3 of a a second to Scott Redding over the line, half a second now to Jonathan Ray. That final sector of that.
Redding, but we've seen it at times through this season when Scott Redding and that Ducati is in the right operating window, it's the fastest bike out in the racetrack. And
race lead, sensational performance it's been from him. And remember, in the battle of the top independent, Garrett Gerloff all the way down in 13th, back to the front of the field. Razgatlioglu backing it in as ever in towards turn 10. Ray closing back down Redding, but it's not good.
Turn 10, because he brakes that little bit earlier than the other riders, he's able to open the gas a little bit earlier, so he exits the corner very well. But you can see for Scott Redding, he's been quite good in the past. Think back to his Grand Prix career, he was able to pick up podiums at MotoGP in changeable conditions.
Wide, very wide for Toprak Raz, back into provisional podium contention, and that just goes to show you the perils of a drying circuit. It's not fully dry just yet. For race 1 and on lap 12 of 20, he wants to bring it home now for this title.
Yeah, the one thing for Toprak is he knows finishing third is good enough. As Scott Redding can see, just a bobble there for Toprak as he came through. He's trying to get that bike stopped all the way, still sliding even on that trail brake. It's certainly been the big wake-up call. We've got the Yamaha pit box just underneath our commentary box here, and certainly that would have given them a few increases.
Hassling and harrying him. Razgatlioglu now 1.3 seconds behind Jonathan Ray, who sits in second position. Scott Redding is he can here to chase down and pass Scott Redding.
Yeah, you can see on this lap already he's pulled back a few tenths of a second, and it was in this last sector he lost a bit of ground. He's got his tail up. He knows that he's got the opportunity to win this race. Put a bit of pressure on Toprak.
The wily old campaigner, the master. See, a new fastest lap of the race, a 1:34.413. Just over a tenth of a second now, the gap to Scott Redding. Behind Toprak Raz.
Yeah, he's just after setting his fastest lap of the race as well. So Toprak on his first clear lap after that mistake, he's pushing on as well. The only problem,
Selbasani, can he pass Toprak Razgatlioglu to keep this title fight alive? Less than a bike length in it as they come off turns 8 and 9. Ray, as has customarily been the case during this race 1, has got the better drive off turn 10, but it's too short a squirt into 11, and Ray
close enough to Scott Redding to try and make a move down into there. The gap between Ray and Razgatlioglu stretched out to 1.2 seconds.
Well, I would say stretched. Vectors coming in from Toprak Razgatlioglu, and a new fastest sector of anyone through sector 3, so Toprak is growing in confidence, the most of the menace. 1.3 seconds now the gap, so Toprak losing a little bit of time through that final sector. Redding, Ray, Razgatlioglu.
He's got to get through on Scott Redding. We saw him get really close in the run down in towards turn 10 last time around. He'll also know that Toprak's the rider behind him.
And importantly as well, by matching the pace or beating the pace, as you say, of the riders in front of him, he's left Axel Bassani behind him, so he's shaken 2.8 seconds back from this race leading squabble, and he's 1.2 seconds down on Toprak Razgatlioglu, despite the fact that he too is backwards, but certainly not for top spot. Might have been 4 tenths at one stage earlier in the lap. It's now back down to just a tenth of a second between Redding side line. Now, Redding looks to have defended that position well enough. Ray then will go slightly wider into 16, but there's no opportunity through here, so it's all going to be a knowing he needs to get through on Scott Redding if he's to keep this fight alive, because Toprak Razgatlioglu at the moment is doing enough for third, but Ray is not close enough back into
Oliver Koenig after his crash into turn 3, but Jonathan Ray, he knows the 5 laps to go. He is going to get an opportunity. A bit of a slide there for Scott Redding through 4 and 5. Just have to try and put his bike in a position to get down the inside into turn 10 or turn 15.
Every time I see them bumping over the curb at 5, slide to keep the title fight alive for another race to take us to a last race decider, and Jonathan Ray is through on Scott Redding. Redding the slightest bit off line. He comes from way back and he almost hits the back of Jonathan Ray. He misses the racing line altogether and does well to stay on the circuit. It's going to give a second wind here.
The second now after Scott tried to make that move into turn 12, and look at Jonathan ran over something there on the racetrack.
Yes, I couldn't quite work out whether it was a race leader, and suddenly the focus turns to what's going on behind him. Can Scott Redding pick back up the pace quickly enough? Toprak has seen better tyre wear late on. Has he got enough still to attack for second place and seal up this world title?
Toprak wants to get the title won now. He wants to get through trying to attack that section of the track. We'll see if Toprak's close enough to make an attack into turn 10. So last time around, obviously Jonathan Ray was able to make that
off one another all season long. They're the top 3 in the championship standings, and in this race, as in the series as a whole, nobody has been able to. Scott Redding, could there even be an opportunity by the end of this lap, let alone by the end of this race? Toprak might even be able to go after Jonathan Ray and try
in that long right-hander, and we've seen a lot of moves made into there. It looks like Toprak a little bit too far back at this stage, so into turn 1 for Toprak.
We'll still have the inside though on the switchback for turn 17. He won't want to mess up the 2 championship contenders, knowing that he's back into turn 1 at the start of lap 18. This could be a title winning overtake from Toprak Razgatlioglu. He's back into second place.
I'm sure he's able to make clean moves. He doesn't want to get involved in that championship battle in any way, but he also wants to make sure he can get through on Toprak if an opportunity presents itself.
Moment, it's all about what the Ducatis can do, because Ray and Razgatlioglu for the moment look settled. A second between them at the head of the field. still to one campaign.
Redding's quite good through turn 13 and 14 compared to Toprak. We'll see if he can get close enough to try and get that Ducati alongside the seconds. He's got a couple of tenths of a second in hand on Scott Redding right now, but any mistake from Toprak, Scott Redding will pounce.
That long braking zone inside through 15, so no way past there, and Redding will have only 2 laps now to find his way through into second position.
Yeah, we know that Zick Corner strong get alongside that Yamaha.
Jonathan Rea doing everything he can out in front, controlling this race.
Yeah, Jonathan's done exactly what he
with victory would be 25 points behind Toprak Razgatlioglu in the championship standings. He would gain back 5, but that would not be it. He's had the greater number of feature-length race wins. It's been a fair while since Jonathan Rea was racking up feature-length race wins consistently.
From those moments, obviously that big moment in turn 15, also on the siding lap initially. It has been an action-packed day for Toprak. He's now open.
The race is finally beginning to settle down, although you'd have to say Toprak still looks like he's pushing. He's got the gap down to 0.7 of a second, and he's still pushing through the final sector.
I'm not going to lie, this is why every neutral loves Toprak. He's got a chance of winning the championship just by sitting in second. He wants to win the race.
To the race leader, Scott Redding's informed. Half a second is the gap. New fastest lap of the race from Razgatlioglu, 1:34.288.
Through turn 1 as well for Toprak, using all the curb there as well on the exit. So he is pushing on. He wants to win this race. We saw, like I said, at some point in this lap, he might view it that it's a bridge too far to be able to close up on Rea.
I think that point's already come. First sector come in what is the penultimate race of this 2021 campaign. It's going to be a first victory since race 2 of the Portuguese round. Only his Toprak Razgatlioglu making his way through in towards the final sector. Only needed second place in this race to be coming him backwards and forwards through the order. But it's all been about Jonathan Rea at the head of the field. Rea looking good to take the race lead. But Rea's reign has come to an end. A new era has begun in World SBK. The 2021 Motul. What he secures, Jonathan Rea is the race winner. But it's Toprak who's done the job all season long, and a fine performance from him.
Tenders there, and both of them should celebrate a great season because it's been a fantastic battle between 2 great riders, and you do need great riders for a great battle. Respect for one another. But ultimately this season, Toprak's been a thoroughly deserving world champion. Really has impressed everyone with how he's been since 2009. Crescent's first world championship as well, and certainly for Yamaha this is going to be one they'll remember for a long time.
Yes, and all Yamaha, a first world title through Toprak Razgatlioglu since that mammoth victory, championship success. Cool, he's looked calm, he's been happy, he's been the same bubbly character that you always see at races, and it's going to be a popular victory this one.
Yeah, Tosh always run the one plate, and Toprak, he'll certainly look to do the same, you think.
Yes, number 1, Toprak Razgatlioglu. How else must come to an end.
Yeah, and especially this season with Toprak's form, he deserves this champion in 2016. It took them a while to manage to get that program fully back on track. We saw them with Sylvain Guintoli, former world champion, Alex Lowe's riders, played a key role in developing that package to get it to this point. Nicola Canepa as well behind the scenes as a test rider, and rider impressive with Toprak over the course of the last couple of years.
Well, we haven't seen any stoppies so far today, had we? So we had to put that right. That wouldn't have been
well, and certainly he's the golden boy in World SBK this year.
So many iconic moments this season. I almost don't want to moments of this season. Been plenty others to remember as well.
Yeah, it's just been the battle between himself and Rea. He's just been willing to put it on the line. Jonathan Rea's been willing. Both the riders able to keep themselves upright at all times, and for Toprak and Rea, that's been one of the big things that's been so important all the way through this year.
Toprak Razgatlioglu gets the celebrations underway almost directly underneath us in the just outside the Pata Yamaha piece. Jonathan Rea could pull off a miracle. Those are going to be collector's items now, but it's Razgatlioglu who makes his way through. He is the champion for 20 wins, wrapped up with 2 rounds to spare. The other 2 barely in doubt, only needed 3 points to get it over the line at the final round last season.
That's Alvaro Bautista. Bautista had the package underneath him. He had all those early season wins, but he didn't have the consistency to be able to keep that. Jonathan Rea kept him in his place almost. Ducati struggled a little bit for consistency. What happened this year? Toprak was super consistent all the way through.
World Championship career on Kawasaki machinery, who received the counsel and advice at that stage of the then world
laps. I tried, but there was just nothing left, which means we got something to work on for race 2, and yeah, recover and go again. Championship. So yeah, just last words, congratulations to them, and look forward to race 2 and to go home and get ready for next season.
And we are champions.